In class, the teachers had the students pass back handouts for tomorrow's home ec cooking class, and our protagonist, 15-year-old Okuto Nakamura, who had just entered Hoshimi High this spring as a freshman, was frantically unfocused on class, and more focused on the boy he had a crush on. The first day he saw Hirose was at the opening day ceremony. Nakamura stood slumped and tired as the principal gave the welcoming speech, until he saw Hirose's light, curly, chestnut hair, big, round, gleaming eyes, and he marveled over Hirose's slightly tanned skin, as well as his expressions that changed every second. But more than anything else, Hirose's wonderful smile. It was a shock he'd never had before. Definitely love at first sight. Oh, oh. What is it? Dang. Oh, so he fell into the love hole. Love at first sight. Ah, guys, love at first sight. I remember stuff like that. Yeah. The childish descriptions. Oh, his light curly hair, big around gleaming eyes, slightly tan skin. These are definitely the childish descriptions of an angsty teenager. A month had passed since then. No progress had been made. They weren't even friends yet. In fact, they haven't even spoken to each other once. He'd been waiting for a chance to talk to Hirose since the first day, but he hadn't even gotten the chance to look him in the eye. He couldn't take it any longer. Today, he definitely talked to Hirose. At the end of class, Nakamura thought about how he simulated every possible conversation in his head since the first day of school. He went up to Hirose, asking, "How are you this fine day? Why don't we go to a fancy cafe together?" Except that didn't happen. It was just his imagination. He inched his way over, but before he could squeak out a word, his brain overloaded at the sight of the eraser. He didn't calculate for this. He sighed after Hirose picked it up and suddenly questioned what he was so scared of. It wasn't that different from what he had in his head. Bro is overthinking too much. First romance, just think less and get it over with. Heading towards Hirose, he took a sharp turn as his crush began to stretch. Then sat depressed at the desk over. He just couldn't get it done. With Hirose's friends calling him ready to leave, Nakamura felt a sense of urgency. He slapped his own cheeks, got up, and inched closer and closer. Hirose stood up abruptly, having finished his work. He turned back to look at Nakamura with a quizzicalness, and our MC got flustered and ran away. He hid his head in the book cubbies, thinking about how whenever he saw Hirose's face, his head went blank. But now reflecting over the fact their eyes met for the first time, he thought Hirose was so cute. He watched his crush leave, and suddenly, Hirose's handkerchief fell out. Nakamura, of course, imagined a whole scenario where he'd give it back to him in a charming, romantic fashion. He thought this was his chance. Divine inspiration, the natural starting point for a relationship. He turned to stone though, with a female classmate going to pick it up. He hurried, he rushed, slamming it down with an overly dramatic stomp. His classmates were appalled, even more so as he picked up the stepped-on handkerchief and presented it to Hirose. Returning home, he ran straight to his room and began to scream. He thought for sure Hirose hated him now. He cried to his pet octopus Ichan, who raised his tentacle to the glass. With this, Nakamura was determined. It was too early to give up. High school life just started. They'd have more opportunities to talk. We moved to cooking class. Today, they'd be making cucumber salad, miso soup, and grilled fish. Nakamura would eavesdrop to listen in on Hirose's friends, mentioning that, with him missing, they couldn't finish making the miso soup. Hirose hurried in late, and Nakamura began to gush over his sweaty handsomeness. He was late because he had to grab his apron. Putting it on, Nakamura fell back. He was grateful to see how cute Hirose was in his apron. He then had imaginations as the two of them being newlyweds. Hirose would be up early telling him good morning, giving him his coffee, then offering him toast or rice for the day. But with Nakamura saying, "I think I'll have you first, Hirose," that was a little too much. Getting too lost in the sauce, his performance in cooking class went horribly bad. Everything went wrong. He still hadn't managed to talk to Hirose yet, and he was slowing everybody down. He also had difficulty getting closer with Hirose's two buddies always next to him. The teacher would suddenly get called to have a word with another, so she told all the students to stop and only do things that didn't require fire or knives. Hirose spotted something he hadn't expected. Live octopuses! Nakamura rushed over thinking they were so cute, but none of the students remembered hearing anything about cooking octopus today. He got irritated with the students being creeped out and unable to see how cute they were. Picking one up, he thought about how the common octopus was smart and strong, and the moms loved their kids. But now wondered if he totally creeped out Hirose. Looking back, he could see Hirose was staring, and now thinking he might have freaked him out. Much to his surprise, Hirose would also pick up an octopus and enjoy the slippery feel of the tentacles touching him. Apparently, they cut this scene from the manga, and people on Twitter are mad about it. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty impressed by the art detail. Remembering that they might have to cook them, Hirose said they should help the octopuses escape. He supposed they'd just have to hide them until school was over. Seeing Hirose turn the faucet to keep them hydrated, Nakamura stopped him because fresh water was deadly for these sea creatures. The students then speculated on what to do, with the fear impending of the idea of the teacher returning ready to chop them up. Another teacher would come in and eventually clear up this misunderstanding. These creatures were here for observation in class. All the teachers had been searching for them, and he was surprised they ended up here. Class continued, and Nakamura was disappointed with another day going by and no progress made talking to his crush. Then got surprised because Hirose would approach him, asking what he was doing in the corner. Hirose thanked Nakamura. Because of him, the octopuses survived. Nakamura stood wide-eyed as Hirose clamored about touching an octopus for the first time. He enjoyed the feeling of their suctions on his skin and laughed over the marks left over. Nakamura was about to ask him to be his friend, but Hirose would get distracted by another octopus in the sink. He'd pick it up, and unfortunately, it'd spray Nakamura in the face with ink. This gave Hirose a laugh. Even though he wasn't able to make any progress, Nakamura was happy to be a little closer, accepting the fact he was shy, gay, and in love with Aiki Hirose. Just like I'd be in love with you liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That's right, guys. We're going full swing with the gay stuff on this channel, and occasionally other things I can't cover on main. I'm building up the boy love videos here, so you better subscribe if you want more. Watching without a YouTube account? You better make one and subscribe to me anyway, or else boy love is over. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Not a gay one though. While taking notes, Nakamura went over another set of monologuing internally, describing himself as shy and gay and in love with Hirose. He's gonna keep doing this, so of course, I'ma skip it moving forward. He apparently reads boy love manga every night and studies them as gospel on how he can have his own romance. Guys, this is bad advice. Do not get all your experience from manga and anime. Learn maybe from your parents if you're young, but mostly trial by fire. He describes his love guide BL manga, Lovable Lunches, a thrilling rom-com between the passionate, reliable Makunochi and Taku, who gradually comes to terms with his feelings. In the last volume, Makunochi admits his feelings. Nakamura wanted to be as assertive as him. He thought Taku was cute and reminded him of Hirose. He was being so loud and annoying, his sister had to come in to tell him to shut up. At school, the female classmates were talking about the latest anime based on a shonen manga. It's about a bodyguard who gets saved by the heroine, and he apparently has a coworker slash rival who's all cool and handsome. So this girl started looking at them in a BL way? Oh my god, is this my viewers again? No, it's like Deku and Bakugo all over again. Hifumi noticed a cockroach, and the girls began screaming and running away. However, how it's depicted is the little cockroach being happy and joyful, smiling and telling everyone it's come to visit. Personally, I've never seen one in real life, so are they this cute? Nakamura finally arrived, and one of the girls shook him, telling him to do something about the bug. He got thrown into it, and he couldn't believe this. He was ignored most of the time, so why now? He'd then hear Hirose's greeting, and his imagination played back to the manga, where Maku saves Taku from the Housefly King. He's seen this scenario in Lovable Lunches, and now felt all his BL reading has paid off. He hoped Hirose would see how cool he was, and tell him to come to his place to deal with his cockroaches. He then folded up one of his notebooks, and approached the little bug. Although he didn't like killing bugs for no reason, it hopped on. His plan was to keep it alive and get it outside. He turned back, hoping to impress his crush, and Hirose stared in awe. However, the little bug saw a tunnel and decided to climb into Nakamura's sleeve. Everyone freaked out and backed away. He couldn't move, feeling it crawl on his back and his stomach. Hirose rushed in and shoved his hand into Nakamura's clothes. He could feel Hirose's small, strong hands, sweat and warmth, until he touched something else. This is so gay. Hirose eventually pulled out the cockroach victoriously. He then held his hand out the window, and the bug happily flew away. He turned back to see a tear fall from Nakamura's eye. Our main character was elated, having been touched by Hirose, and thankful for the cockroach. For a while after that, people kept their distance though. During math class, instead of paying attention, Nakamura was studying more of his favorite BL manga, plotting his next move to impress Hirose. He considered acting more confident, and his teacher would whack him to pay attention. Nakamura was glad at least his teacher didn't notice he was reading BL in class. He decided to read it while he ate, for practice to make himself feel better. This particular chapter, Makunochi was trying to feed Taku, but he got rejected. Taku had said at this point he liked him, but didn't know what that really entailed. That's when Maku wiped the food off Taku's mouth and said, "Don't worry, I'll make sure you know exactly what it means." He then presented more food face to face, adding, "This is my special, love-filled, super sweet tamagoyaki. First, taste this." Taku swallowed and said it was delicious. Nakamura was full, both from eating and the heart now. He'd love to have lunch with Hirose someday, like in the manga. They could feed each other. He imagined having Hirose say, "Ah," and asking him, "How's my special octo-wiener?" Hirose would then ask Nakamura if they could put octo-wieners in each other's mouths every day. Okay, he didn't say that, but I just felt I had to. Walking in the hall, Nakamura tripped over a bucket and fell. Who came to check on him? Hirose, of course. Nakamura freaked out, but then quickly began to seem like he was alright. Hearing Hirose was worried about him, Nakamura thought his kindness was on another level. Hirose would point to something at Nakamura's feet. It was lovable lunches. Nakamura began to sweat profusely, and with him denying it was his, Hirose became skeptical, seeing he denied so quickly. However, he would take it to the class, wanting to return it to its proper owner. He really stood in front of everyone and asked. Wow, I'd be pretty embarrassed if I was Nakamura for sure. The boys started joking, realizing it was a BL book, and now Nakamura was having flashbacks. There was a time right after swim class in elementary school. The teacher pulled out his underwear since it was left in the locker rooms. The boys in front of Nakamura teased because whoever it was wasn't wearing any. Back then, all he could do was panic. But since growing up, he knew exactly what to do at times like these. He made his way to his desk and played dumb. The day ended with zero progress made again. He wondered if he was getting further away from his crush. And now his manga was gone too. He headed into the teacher's office to get a new form for his bike, and found Kaoru-sensei reading his book. Apparently, Kaoru thought it was pretty good. He was sure whoever it was probably too embarrassed to get it, considering its strange premise. But he figured exactly what I've been thinking the entire time. The owner of this book is naive about love. Nakamura shrank further and got his bike form. On his way home, he'd stop by the bookstore to get another copy of Lovable Lunches. And of course, he'd somehow come across Hirose greeting him. Hirose pondered on it a bit, but eventually remembered his name, calling him Cockroach Boy Nakamura. The guy who stepped on his handkerchief and had an octopus spit ink at him, Nakamura. He remembered him because it was so funny. Despite Nakamura's embarrassment, Hirose greeted him kindly, and now they'd finally both introduced themselves to each other. Hirose would ask about the manga in Nakamura's hand, but our boy made the excuse it just fell off the shelf and he was putting it back. Hirose would ask about the section and Nakamura stammered, admitting boys love. Thinking back to the manga he saw earlier, Hirose went, so you read it too? Even though Nakamura tried to deny it. Oh my god, look at Hirose's face. So smug and goofy. Nakamura was again embarrassed, but Hirose then simply said, well, different strokes for different folks. He thought it was fine that Nakamura read this stuff. It eased Nakamura's heart. Hirose helped him realize he wasn't doing anything wrong, so there was no need to hide it. Maku would always have his head held high, surely. He'd then show Hirose the next book he was looking for. But apparently it was so bad they redacted it? Is it X-rated? Who knows? Hirose got embarrassed, saying different strokes for different folks again, and hurried out. Nakamura once again found himself in an embarrassing position. After realizing he could never be Maku, he stopped trying to learn lessons from BL. On another day at school, Nakamura's class was cleaning up the music room. Hifumi and her friends then started imagining a love triangle between Hirose and Takuchi. The BL shipping is never ending. Even when Nakamura came into view, it was like he didn't exist to them. As a 15-year-old high school student, Hifumi was shy and a fujoshi. During sketching class, Nakamoto thought the whole thing was a drag. This was until he heard Hirose would be modeling. With Hirose standing in the middle of the class, this was the perfect chance for Nakamoto to stare all he wanted. He waited so long for this. He would burn all the things he saw while sneaking glances into his mind. Hirose noticed Nakamoto staring into his soul, and that made him a bit uncomfortable. On the other hand, Nakamoto admired all his features. Hirose's eyes were so sparkly, his lashes were long, and his lips were so plump. The longer Nakamoto looked, the cuter he was. He couldn't stop drawing. Believing his drawing was the best in the class, that thought was shut down as soon as he saw Hifumi's. He couldn't help but stare at her drawing, and she felt uneasy with eyes on her. At the sound of the bell, she quickly packed up her things and left the class. Freaked out, she wondered what she could have done, but right now, getting back to class would be a relief for her. Unexpectedly, Nakamoto caught up to her, asking her name. At first, she thought he was hitting on her, but he said he was a fan and asked for her drawing. He's that down bad, huh? She gave it to Nakamoto, and he was filled with so much joy. On the other hand, Hifumi didn't know how to react to having a fan. It was obvious it made her feel good. In class, Hifumi was lost in thought. She'd freak out when her friends asked which boys she was into, but they meant which boys she'd ship together. She thought Hirose was kinda cute when she sketched. Hearing that, Masako and Yuka urged her to sketch the fantasy. Working faster than the eye could see, Hifumi satisfied their curiosity. They'd take a look at her other sketches and got curious. Seeing an image of Nakamoto, Hifumi quickly snatched away the sketchbook, feeling embarrassed. When she came clean, they teased her about her crush. Yuka said he looked like someone drew a face on a mushroom. Damn, she didn't have to be that ruthless. They just didn't get how Hifumi felt. She admired how Nakamoto's eyes were so clear and earnest when looking at them up close. Seems Nakamoto wasn't the only one in love. Oh my. Gay love triangle with straight Fujoshi. This is gonna be a mess. As he entered the class, Hifumi's friends urged her to ask him out and even give him a portrait. Of course, she was too shy. But at this rate, she'd never make any progress. With Yuka wanting to hand over the sketchbook herself, they all started fighting over it. Amidst the struggle, the sketchbook fell open right in front of Nakamoto. Seeing the sketch of him and Hirose, he ignored it and walked over to his seat. Whatever chances of love she would have had, Hifumi felt that was long gone. Surprisingly, Nakamoto approached shortly after, asking her to draw sketches of him and Hirose in his notebook. The request left her speechless. When she was done, he was moved to tears. Flipping through the pages, he didn't expect that she'd draw a whole manga. After thanking her, he left, saying they'd see each other later, and that was the perfect excuse Hifumi had to talk to him again. We turned to PE class, where Neo, Kaoru, would be stepping in for Shimada as their teacher. Instead of badminton, they'd be playing volleyball today. Kaoru was known for being strict. On the other hand, the girls would be playing badminton. Since they were having PE with the boys, Hifumi would get to see Nakamoto. When he came on for volleyball, she eagerly watched to see how good he was. Taking a stance, the girls thought they were in for a show. Except Nakamoto would receive the ball with his face and go ahead to mess up every time. Yet, Hifumi thought he looked so cool. I guess love really is blind. While cleaning up after class, Nakamoto was shocked to meet Hifumi in the storeroom. Apparently, she found a family of mice here and thought they were cute. Likewise, he shared the same sentiments and called her a nice person. Hearing those words, she was flush. That's when Hirose came in, and now Nakamoto was the one who was all flustered. Hirose saw the mice and suggested hiding them with the equipment. And while they were all lost in the cuteness, they got locked in. They'd bang on the door, screaming for help, but everyone was already gone. With no other choice, they agreed to pass the time by chatting. As time passed, the number of things they could talk about wasn't so much. An hour later, no one had come for them still. The room was getting so hot, especially for Nakamoto and Hifumi, who were both close to their crushes. They both wished they could stay here all night. Poor Hirose was completely clueless. Out of nowhere, he asked if they were crushing on anyone. They'd both immediately deny it. At night, Nakamoto woke up and found the others asleep. Who even leaves kids in school for this long? Hifumi slumped over his shoulder, and he began feeling like the king of the seas. When Hirose leaned in a bit closer, he got flustered. Then, he started trying to get closer to touch him. Being able to get a whiff of Hirose's scent made him so happy. Just when he was about to touch Hirose, Kaoru finally found him. Nakamoto hoped the teacher didn't catch him in the act. Afterwards, Kaoru would apologize to them for being careless. And it turns out, he actually did catch Nakamoto sniffing Hirose. With Otogiri offering them a ride home, the three of them got into his car. Nakamura was glad Hirose didn't notice anything. Meanwhile, from Hifumi's point of view, it looked like Nakamura and Hirose were about to kiss back then. She'd catch him staring intensely in Hirose's direction. Noticing how quiet she was, Nakamura asked if she was alright. He was glad to hear she was fine, and that gesture made her admire his kindness. On a special day, Hirose confessed to Nakamura, saying he'd always wanted to be best friends with him. Blushing hard, Nakamura couldn't believe his ears. Did Hirose actually want to be his best friend? As Hirose made it clear, they'd go frolicking in the flower fields together with so much happiness. As if this was just Nakamura going over the manga Hifumi drew of him and Hirose. Shedding tears, he couldn't get over how beautiful the story was. His sister would then barge into his room, letting him know breakfast was ready. On his way to school, Nakamura came across two guys who were talking about their due math homework. They seemed like good friends. He began daydreaming of him and Hirose in that situation. Speaking of good friends, according to Lovable Lunches, the main characters hung out together and slept over at each other's houses. Nakamura started fantasizing about what a sleepover with Hirose would look like. With only one futon, they'd have to share. And he was gushing at the thought of it. To his surprise, Hirose came along, greeting him. Nakamura's heart skipped a beat. Hirose striking up a conversation with him was too good to be true. Hearing that he cycled from Dangogaoka, Umori Tsukasa mentioned they had good Japanese sweet shops. Hirose said that when he came over to his place. Umori would then introduce himself to Nakamura. Though they were in the same class, this was their first time talking. Hearing that Umori and Hirose walked to school together left Nakamura devastated. To make things worse, they even lived close to each other. Nakamura's heartbreak was yet to stop. Apparently, Hirose and Umori had known each other since grade school. They were basically childhood friends. Seeing Hirose put his hands around Umori, Nakamura desperately wanted to tag in. Rather than take Omori's place, Nakamura reasoned he could use him to learn more about Hirose. On their way, Hirose stopped as he came across an octopus tank. Then, he recalled that Nakamura liked him. The fact that Hirose recalled made him flush. Then, Nakamura would start rambling on about why he liked octopuses. He suddenly stopped, remembering how he creeped out the other kids in his younger days. Because of that, he claimed he didn't like octopuses that much. Since they were about to be late, Hirose and Umori ran off to make it in time for school. Shortly after, Nakamura zoomed past two girls. Screaming with tears in his eyes, he felt he had ruined the moment Hirose came to talk to him, and now he was the world's biggest idiot. Sobbing and in despair, he drew in the sand. Then, Reiko approached him. Taking one glance at that sinister-looking drawing, she acknowledged his talent. She asked him to join the art club. Thinking she was a weirdo, Nakamura completely ignored her and went about his business. However, Reiko wouldn't back down so easily. She recognized his talent and wanted him to help. As the club president, she believed in his potential. He'd politely turn her down because he wanted to decide for himself which club to join. She teased him, saying he'd never learned the art club's unbelievable secret, and she went ahead to spill it. There was a city art contest that had been held for years. The superstition was that if you entered the contest, whatever you drew would become real. Nakamura said it was ridiculous, but Reiko could see curiosity written all over him. It was said the contest was famous for making dreams come true, one after another. Right now, the art club had room for one more person to enter the contest. Reiko would entice Nakamura more, letting him know that if he were to create a drawing about love, it might come true. Desperate to win Hirose's heart, Nakamura agreed to join. While filling the form, he'd remove a sticker, revealing it wasn't actually the art club, but an occult and horror club. Thanks to that, he completely lost interest. But desperate, Reiko latched on to Nakamura, begging if her club didn't get members, they'd be disbanded. He didn't get why she wanted him in particular. So, she went on a ramble about why he'd be perfect for the club. Her club studied everything involving the occult, superstitions, curses, and horror film analysis for her specialty. With them being one person short for the seance they wanted to hold, she was desperate to get Nakamura in. She'd give him a vial with red liquid. It totally looked like blood, but Reiko called it a miraculous, magic, holy water that would bring him good luck. Refusing to take it back, she ran off, hoping he'd eventually agree to join. In class, Nakamura stared at the ominous red vial. Opening it up, it had an awful smell. All he could think of was how to dispose of it. Then again, he wondered if he'd be cursed if he threw it away. Hirose then came over, handing him a piece of candy. He felt sorry for ditching him earlier on. Nakamura was freaking out staring at it. He swore to make it his family treasure. Looking back at the so-called magic holy water, he wondered if this good fortune was truly because of it. From that moment, he'd have quite a number of encounters with Hirose. Could the holy water actually be working, or was it all coincidence? The only way he'd believe it was if he and Hirose walked home together like best buds. Fortune would smile upon Nakamura as Hirose walked up to him, asking if he'd like to walk home together. Hirose was tasked with delivering handouts to Sato's place, which was in Dangogaoka. Since he didn't know the area well, he was thinking Nakamura could show him the way. Of course, Nakamura would accept without a second thought. As they walked together, he was basically on cloud 9 to think he'd actually be walking home with just Hirose. Nakamura was filled with so much happiness. Nevertheless, he didn't want to think it was thanks to that holy water. Hearing Nakamura had a younger sister, Hirose was jealous, wishing he had one too. His older sister was so annoying. Nakamura told him younger sisters were annoying as well, and she came into his room to yell at him this morning. Despite being younger, she bossed him around and kicked him. She was a brat who made their parents side with her. There were so many things that pissed him off. As he caught himself rambling again, Hirose laughed at him. He thought Nakamura was funny and didn't expect him to talk much. At first, he was hesitant to talk to him, but felt relieved now. He thought Nakamura was easy to talk to. Nakamura wished time could stop so he could relish this moment forever. As they parted ways, Nakamura's heart burst with so much emotion. He felt like he could die now. He'd hold on to the memories of today forever, but then be interrupted, hearing a voice coming from Hirose's direction. Hirose had somehow run into delinquents from Mad Road High. Bro, what are these JoJo-esque goons? These are high schoolers? Seeing the situation, Nakamura panicked, wondering what to do. Noticing the holy water in his jacket, he got an idea. While Hirose was being bullied, he screamed for help. Just then, Nakamura came cycling in to save his crush. But when the bullies turned around, he was nowhere to be found. So they got back to forcing Hirose to be their photography club's model. It turned out, Nakamura had fallen into the manhole behind them. He slowly rose from that abyss, blood dripping down all over his face as he threatened the bullies to stay away. Oh wow, they're referencing The Ring, one of my favorite horror movies. Scared for their lives, they ran away with their tails between their legs. Hirose would then recognize Nakamura and start laughing at him. He handed him a handkerchief to wipe himself, thanking him for the save. Later in school, Nakamura would return the empty vial to Reiko. She had heard a rumor that a zombie appeared around Dangogaoka 3 Comb. Thanks to an eyewitness's testimony, she drew a sketch. It totally looked like him. This made Reiko more eager for Nakamura to join her occult club, but he declined. However, she wasn't about to give up. She'd make him join the club soon enough. After that, Nakamura came across Hirose staring at the bulletin board. Reiko had posted that sketch of him there, making him feel embarrassed. He'd feel even worse seeing Hirose agreed that he actually looked like that. In class, Nakamura was giggling to himself as he read his plans to become Hirose's friend. He finally did it. It was too good to be true. But he actually walked home with Hirose after school. He still had stuff he had yet to cover, like eating lunch and listening to their favorite songs together. Right now, it seemed out of reach. Recalling how Hirose called him awesome, he figured they were quite close, being friends already. He was certain he had it in the bag. But seeing Takuchi walk in with his arms around Hirose, Nakamura couldn't believe his eyes. Since when were they so close? They even started touching each other, trying to see how much muscle they each had grown. And the way they were laughing together made Nakamura nearly lose his mind. Of course, it didn't stop there. During lunch, Hirose would feed Takuchi. He'd then sit on Takuchi's lap while reading manga, and this made Nakamura rip his book. This is so gay. Nakamura would then tail them outside. As he saw them hold hands, that was when the demon inside him finally burst out. He completely lost it, cursing Takuchi and vowing to make him pay for this. Every single thing he had dreamed of doing, Takuchi had taken his place. Back in class, Takuchi would insist on carrying Hirose, lifting him off his feet like a princess. While the girls laughed, Nakamura looked like he was about to end someone. Walking towards the windows, he filled the air with dust using the chalkboard eraser. Then, he walked out, completely ignoring Takuchi's complaints. When Takuchi tried holding Hirose's hand in the hallway, Nakamura walked between them, and when Hirose wanted to feed Takuchi, he'd fake a fall, spilling the chocolate drink on him. Nakamura figured these would be enough to keep him away, only for him to look up the next second and see them listening to music together. A gloomy Nakamura lost all hope, not knowing what else to do. He'd then get the idea that perhaps Hirose just let his friends act like this. So, he started imagining what it would be like in the future if he and Hirose became friends, fantasizing about how much they'd laugh together, walk under the rain, and Hirose sitting on his lap. Nakamura saw this as an opportunity. Mukai then approached Hirose and Takuchi, asking if they were dating. Takuchi would then point towards Nakamura's direction, and he wondered why they were staring at him.
assuming Takuchi was doing this to spite him. Little did he know that this was all Takuchi's strategy to just get Yuka's attention. Hirose insisted there had to be a better way. However, Takuchi was doing this because he heard Yuka loved nothing more than watching dudes flirt with each other. Oh my god, he's gay baiting to try to get at the foids? I heard that's an effective mating strategy. The internet told me so. And of course, everything you hear on the internet is true. Either way, Mokai and Hirose doubted this would work. But Takuchi believed his plan was working because Yuka was looking his way. Meanwhile, the girls just found it odd how close he and Hirose had been. Takuchi begged Hirose to just stick with the plan, at least until Yuka talked to him. But even if he caught Yuka's interest, there's no way it would be romantically. Somehow, Takuchi only realized this now. Where did he think this plan was gonna lead him? While Hirose was cheering him up, Nakamura, on the other hand, was still very jealous and furious. He got so fed up, he stood up from his seat aggressively, and at the same time, Takuchi stood, heading in his direction. He'd walked past Nakamura, approaching Yuka and confessing his feelings. He asked her out, and she actually agreed? No way, it really worked. His confession made her flush, but she only agreed on the condition that he'd flirt with more boys. Thanks to that, Hirose was in it for a lot more flirting than he signed up for. Oh man, they got a boy love max now. Even though Takuchi and Hirose weren't an item, Nakamura refused to let his guard down. He then noticed something seemed off in class today. Seeing that some of his classmates had different hair colors, he remembered it was dress code check week. The guidance counselors were really strict about it. The other day, they made a big deal of an undone shirt button. They even threatened the students with cleaning bathrooms for a month if they were caught again. Breaking the rules meant you'd get stuck cleaning the bathrooms or the gutters. But Nakamura didn't really get in trouble, since he was the type to follow the rules. When the teacher came in, he noticed Hirose and Omori weren't in class. Mukai mentioned they were having a meeting, which made them late. In the hallway, they were being held up by the guidance counselors. The female Karen counselor assumed Hirose dyed his hair, not believing it was his natural color. Hirose called her out for being extreme. He didn't see what the big deal was about his hair color. Thanks to that, the guidance counselors were riled up. Hirose was then ordered to dye his hair black by tomorrow. But he wasn't backing down, and asked them if they'd make a foreign student dye their hair black as well. His words only caused more trouble, as they sentenced him to baldness. Just as he was about to get his hair cut, Otogiri-sensei showed up, defending his student. As Hirose's homeroom teacher, he decided to take the responsibility of disciplining him. Taking Hirose into a class alone, his shouting left everyone else scared. It was so bad that the guidance counselor begged him to stop. With that settled, they returned to class. Getting inside the classroom, Hirose started laughing. It turned out that he and Otogiri were putting up an act. Otogiri-sensei was the really cool teacher. Hirose felt teachers like him were awesome, and that made him consider becoming one. Meanwhile, Nakamura had a completely different understanding of the situation and started to freak out. Later on, Hirose would hang around Otogiri-sensei a lot more. It only served to heighten Nakamura's fears. Back at home, he'd already concluded that Hirose was in love with their homeroom teacher. He'd come across a protein shake ad and got an idea. If he just got big muscles, he believed Hirose would be all over him. So his plan was to get ripped. He'd take quite a number of protein shakes, believing that was all he needed. When he got to school, those supplements were trying to find their way back up. Otogiri asked him a question, but he couldn't even answer. Seeing how pale he looked, he then asked Nakamura to visit the nurse's office. Surprisingly, Hirose offered to go with him, but only because he was the class health rep. Unable to hold it in any longer, Nakamura darted to the toilet, throwing up all he drank. Hirose would comfort him, rubbing his back. His touch felt so warm and gentle that Nakamura felt he was in paradise for a moment. Upon getting to the infirmary, no one was there. While Nakamura lay in bed, Hirose stayed with him. Nakamura thought he was such an angel. He felt so pathetic for not being able to handle a protein shake. Hours later, while he was asleep, he was suddenly woken up by the sound of Otogiri's voice. On the other side of the curtain, he and Hirose were happily chatting. Hirose asked for his line ID, and Otogiri teased him, saying that'd be cute if he were a girl. Meanwhile, Nakamura was regretting each passing second as they talked. He questioned if they were an item, but refused to believe it. Otogiri then said, "I need to suck cheeks." From his gesture, he was talking about smoking. Nevertheless, Nakamura had already assumed the worst, and when Hirose said he could handle it, Nakamura only felt worse. At this point, he just wanted to die. Otogiri then asked Hirose if he decided where to go for next week's extracurricular lesson. Hearing that, Nakamura jumped to his feet. With the extracurricular lessons, he still had hope to recover from this and turn this crappy situation around. Alright, another fun episode in the books. You know, this show's made me really warm up to the school genre a bit. There's a lot of small funny moments. Make sure to support the artist by buying her manga if you can. She's unfortunately been bullied off of Twitter, and the harassment is so bad, her team is putting out PR statements clarifying what they've censored. Really, no one is winning. The people who harassed her are not fans of her work, or BL probably. And now her actual fans are suffering because they're censoring scenes in the anime. Terrible. But that aside, subscribe to keep up with future parts. And for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.